I will miss my friend Jerry. We will all miss her, but we are all better people because of her. Rest in peace, Jerry. We will always remember you, and so will the history books. I yield back, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman yields back. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 5th, 2011, the Chair recognizes the gentleman from Indiana, Mr. Burton, for 30 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to unload some of my paraphernalia, and then I'll be ready to roll. I just don't want all these clocks to go off, or these because if that happens, everybody will think that there's an alarm. Okay. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 30 minutes and to revise and extend my remarks.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, you know, a while ago, one of my colleagues was down here talking about the Obamacare and what a problem it was going to cause for this country from a financial standpoint, as well as causing rationing of health care and a whole host of other things. But what I want to do right now is bring to the attention of my colleagues and anybody else that's paying attention a decision that was just made by U.S. District Judge Rosemary Collyer that affects everybody on Social Security who wants to have a health care plan besides Medicare. And I'm going to read you an op-ed that just was in the Washington Examiner, and it was also in the Wall Street Journal, that I think every single American ought to be aware of, because this has a wide-ranging impact on everybody in this country. Here's what it says. A recent court ruling has helped President Obama push ahead with a mandate that all citizens be required to have government health care. Now get that. This court ruling would mandate that every citizen in this country has government health care, socialized medicine. In a March 16th decision, U.S. District Judge Rosemary Collyer, who previously served as general counsel of the National Labor Relations Board, she ruled that seniors who elect to opt out of Medicare coverage must forfeit their Social Security benefits as well and repay all past Social Security benefits prior to opting out. Now, I hope everybody is getting that in their offices. If you don't take Medicare coverage and you're a senior and you opt out of Medicare coverage because you want another form of health care, maybe a better form of health care, then you've got to lose your Social Security payments and pay back all the Social Security payments that you received in the past. Now, anybody that's paying attention is going to say, nah, that didn't really happen. But I'm telling you, that decision was made on March the 16th by Judge Rosemary Collyer, U.S. District Judge here in this area. Now, the ruling relates to a lawsuit that was filed in 2008 when and this is the name of the case, Hall versus Sebelius, several senior citizens challenged a 1993 Clinton administration program rule and sued the federal government for the right to opt out of Medicare without losing their Social Security benefits. The plaintiffs all paid their Medicare taxes throughout their employment histories and did not request reimbursement of the money. So they paid into Medicare for the entire time that they'd been working. These individuals simply wished to engage other health insurance plans. They wanted to get some other health insurance plan besides Medicare. They paid into Medicare, they paid into Social Security, but they wanted to get other health insurance besides Medicare. And it goes on to say that they believed that would provide better coverage than that of the government Medicare program. In addition, these seniors contributed to Social Security while they were working and accepted these benefits upon retirement. Now, here's what the seniors' lawsuit argued. Both the Social Security and Medicare Acts state that the application for Social Security benefits and Medicare are voluntary, and that applications for each program are not dependent upon each other. Forced participation in Medicare violates an individual's constitutional right to privacy. The Clinton-era rules were promulgated without undergoing the required notice and comment rulemaking requirements, which is a violation of the Federal Administrative Procedure Act. The judge stated that, in its arguments, the Obama administration, quote, extols the benefits of Medicare and suggests that plaintiffs would agree that they are not truly injured if they were to learn more about Medicare, perhaps through discovery. Note the familiar condescending Obama administration tone. Take the Medicare and then find out what's in it. You'll like it when you do. We had that problem before on legislation. You remember the previous Speaker of the House, when was asked about the Obamacare, she said, well, we've got to pass the bill, then we'll find out what's in it. That really made a lot of sense. But once again, this is pretty much the attitude of the administration. Now, here's what the judge went on to say. The parties use a lot of ink disputing whether plaintiffs' desire to avoid Medicare Part A is sensible. Translation: if Americans don't want government-run health care, well, they just don't have much sense. After all, the government knows what's best for them, and they don't. Most astounding about this case is that as of late 2009, this same judge, Judge Collier, supported the plaintiff's claim and even refused the Obama administration's request to dismiss the suit. And her ruling then was that neither the statute nor the regulation specifies that plaintiffs must withdraw from Social Security and repay retirement benefits in order to withdraw from Medicare, which means simply that if they decide not to take Medicare, they can continue to get their Social Security that they paid into, as they should, and they wouldn't have to pay back Social Security benefits they'd received in the past. And that makes sense. In her stunning reversal, she changed her mind. Now, this judge made this ruling in 2009, and now she changes her mind. And she says in her stunning reversal, she argues that requiring a mechanism for plaintiffs and others in their situation to disenroll would be contrary to congressional intent, which was to provide mandatory benefits under Medicare Part A and for those receiving Social Security retirement plans. Quote, plaintiffs are trapped in a government program intended for their benefit. They disagree and wish to escape, Collier wrote. The court can find no loophole or requirement that the Secretary provides such a pathway. According to Collier, an entitlement is mandatory. You have to take it. Now, here's the government saying you have to take Medicare. And her opinion will undoubtedly be relied upon by the Obama administration as support for claims of mandatory entitlements, such as that which is the crux of Obamacare, which could be Medicare for everyone. Everyone would have to be covered, not by their own individual health care plans that they have or by their employer's health care plan or a group plan they're on, but everyone would have to be covered by Medicare, which is a government-run socialized medicine approach, which ultimately would ration health care and cost a great deal more. Obamacare, when you run it out to its for 10 years, you find it's going to cost literally trillions of dollars at a time when we have a $14 trillion national debt, and this year alone we're exceeding our revenues by $1.4 trillion. The Wall Street Journal reported that Kent Masterson Brown, the lead attorney for the seniors, commented that if Americans wonder how bureaucrats will write Obamacare's rules, they need look only to this ruling. Quote, when they do, he said, they will realize nothing will be optional. This is an alarming decision that came about in a disturbing manner. Collier's ruling is a danger to freedom-loving Americans. Let's look to the plaintiffs' appeal, they're appealing, to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals for more favorable results. Now, that's where we are today. If she is not reversed, that means anybody who gets Social Security, who may have another health care plan, may not want to be on Medicare, they either take Medicare or they have to pay all their Social Security benefits back, plus they don't get Social Security in the future. Now think about that. You don't want to take Medicare for whatever reason, and you've been paying into Social Security all of your life. You're getting Social Security benefits, and because you won't take Medicare, they say, you got to pay all your Social Security benefits back to when you received them, and you can't get any more in the future. That is just absolutely crazy. Now, I want to read to you some information that I have from the actual wording of the statute. And this is very, very important, because it can only be interpreted one way, and yet this judge and the Obama administration is changing it so that it will fit their desired objective. Now, let me read this to you. Be patient with me while I read this and get it up to get all the information before me. Now here's what the Medicare statute says. Now see if you can get, my colleagues in your offices, see if you get from this that the people have to take Medicare if they're getting Social Security, or they have to pay the payments back and not get any more of their Social Security benefits. Here's what the Medicare statute says. The Medicare statute provides that only individuals who are entitled to Social Security are entitled to Medicare. If you're entitled to Social Security, you have to be entitled to Social Security in order to be entitled to Medicare. But it does not say, if you're entitled to Social Security, that you have to take Medicare. It only says if you're entitled to Social Security, you're entitled, if you want to take Medicare. Now, this judge is changing the words that are in the statute to mean that if you take Social Security, you have to take Medicare. But the law does not say that. So she is making law on the federal bench. And that's not what our founders contemplated when they wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. So listen to this again. The Medicare statute says that only individuals who are entitled to Social Security are entitled to Medicare. Therefore, the judge is arguing the only way to avoid entitlement to Medicare Part A at age 65 is to forego the source of that entitlement, i.e. Social Security retirement benefits. So she's standing the law of the country, the Medicare law and the Social Security law, on their heads. And this will mean to every single citizen of this country, if the government says, here's something we want you to do, and if you don't do it, we're going to take away another benefit you have or another government program, you will have to do it. Because that's what this judge's ruling means simply. If the government is giving you a benefit like Social Security, and they decide that there's another benefit that you're entitled to, but doesn't say you have to take it, but you don't take it, they'll be able to withdraw your Social Security and say you have to pay back all the benefits of the past. This is absolutely insane. It is government run amok, government run out of control. And this judge, if I had the ability, would be fired. One time in 1997 or 8, I said before, I can't remember the exact date, her ruling was let me give the exact date on it. In 2008, she ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, saying if you've got Social Security and you don't want Medicare because you've got another health care plan, you don't have to take it. And now she's reversed herself and said if you get Social Security, you have to take Medicare. And once again, before I give up the floor, Mr. Speaker, and I see my good friends here, I'm going to yield to you the balance of my time. This is what the law says. The law says that only individuals who are entitled to Social Security are entitled to Medicare. But that does not say if you're entitled to Social Security, you have to take Medicare. And she's saying, and I hope everybody's getting this, she's saying that if you're getting Social Security, you have to take Medicare. If you've got another health plan, if your employer has another health plan, doesn't matter. You've got to get rid of those and you have to join Medicare or you lose your benefits. Now, this case is on appeal, and I hope it goes all the way to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court will reverse it. Because if it does not repeal this decision by Judge Collier, then what's going to happen is everything the government says will have to be done. and you will have almost complete government control over every aspect of our life. If they can say, you get Social Security, you got to take Medicare. And if you've got a separate health care plan, to heck with it. And if they can go far enough to say that, they can say anything they want to make you jump through a hoop. And that is just dead wrong, and it flies into the face of everything that we believe as far as a free people and a free government is concerned. I just can't believe some of the things that are happening around here. And the thing that bothers me, Mr. Speaker, is the American people who are involved in so many things that they can't pay attention to all the things that are going on. They rely upon their elected representatives, because we have a democratic republic, to study these bills and make decisions that are best for the entire country. And that's the reason they do this, because we've got 300 million people here and they can't read every bill or watch every court decision. But the fact of the matter is, these courts, a separate part of our government, our forefathers said we've got a judicial branch, a legislative branch, and an executive branch, and they're supposed to be co-equal. But here you have a federal judge making a law that will transcend laws that we have on the books and change the way of life for every single American. Remember what this does. The law says if you're getting Social Security, you may take Medicare. And what the judge is saying, if you get Social Security, you have to take Medicare, no matter what other health care plan you have. And if you don't do what the government tells you, you have to do it, then you're going to lose your Social Security benefits. And not only that, you have to pay back, probably with interest, every Social Security check you received. That is horrible. This administration and this judge ought to be taken to task for it. And with that, I'd like to yield to my colleague from Texas, Mr. Gohmert.
And I appreciate my good friend for yielding. You know, we hear so often from this administration they're concerned about the little guy, but we know that Wall Street executives gave contributions 4 times more for the present president than they did for his Republican opponent. And so it kind of tells you where you see where the contributions come from a particular candidate, who they really care about. We're told that though they really care about the working poor, and yet the very thing you're talking about under the Obamacare bill, it is almost inconceivable, except that it was pushed through by this president and 2 Democratic majorities, that there's a provision that if you are just above the poverty line and you can't afford the health insurance that this administration dictates, that, as I understand, will be including pregnancy. Say you're a young single person, no plans of getting pregnant, no ability to get pregnant, other things that will not affect you at all but have been mandated by the administration. Instead of being able to buy a cheaper insurance policy you can afford, this administration will have made it so expensive that people just above the poverty line won't be able to afford it. And how the bill deals with those working poor just above the poverty line, it requires a 2% additional income tax if you cannot afford the insurance that they mandate.
Can I just say one thing? My colleague, good friend of mine, Representative Gohmert, points out the fallacy and the problems with the Obamacare bill. And that is bad, very bad, and it should not be in law, and that's why we moved H.R. 1 to repeal it. But this decision that I was talking about, Louis, even goes further than that. It says if you're getting Social Security, you have to take Medicare. Yeah. And what they're doing is they're saying everybody in this country is ultimately going to have to be under a government-run program, Medicare or Obamacare, which means socialized medicine and an entirely different approach to medicine, which will be controlled by government bureaucrats.
Well, I understood where my friend was going, and I had not heard about that opinion, and I'm so glad the smart gentleman had brought that to our attention, because that is just incredible, except that it is exactly what the Democratic proponents of Obamacare, and the president himself had said before they wanted to get to. The goal was to use this to get to a complete government-run health care, a single-payer system where everybody is required to be under it. And so this decision speeds that process up dramatically, but it is ultimately where they said they wanted to get anyway. Now, having seen socialized medicine firsthand in the Soviet Union as an exchange student back in '73, and having seen another form of socialized medicine for 4 years in the United States Army, I don't want to go there. I don't want the government in charge of my health care. I saw that in the Army. We have some incredible medics. We have some folks that shouldn't be practicing medicine that were working there, and in fact, hopeful that I was helpful in getting rid of some of those. But that's not where we need to be going. People deserve better. But I thought the fact that in the bill itself, there is retribution for the working poor who can't even afford to do what the administration has dictated. So between the judge saying if you got Social Security you're going to be crammed into this type policy, and this administration and the former Speaker Pelosi and Harry Reid saying that we're going to penalize you because you're working poor and can't afford the luxuries of the policy we're mandating, the working guy just doesn't have much of a chance unless we are able to turn some of those things around. And the working poor is what I often saw at Fort Benning when people were not getting paid what they should have under President Carter. But now military is paid better, and yet I wanted to bring up the situation that exists, there's an attempt to use the military as pawns, even while they're out there fighting to protect us in foreign areas, combat theaters. The last thing those people should have to worry about is whether or not their money arrives in their account so their family can be taken care of. Yet we're hearing from military people, they understand if there's a shutdown, sure, they'll get their pay eventually when the shutdown is over. And maybe they'll be lucky and the Harry Reid and the Democrats in the Senate won't force a shutdown for very long. We know they want to force it because they keep saying they do. And of course, when we heard from Senator Schumer himself that this is a political game to them, they're going to force a shutdown and basically blame the Tea Party. The military are the ones that are going to get hurt there. This from the Democratic Party that says all they care about is those working to protect us. And yet when you see what they're really doing behind the scenes, it's no such thing. Yeah. We have a report from CRS here that says, and I'm quoting, even though uniformed personnel have been accepted from furloughs during a lapse in funding, no special provision allows the Defense Department to provide pay when appropriated funds are not available to do so. In this regard, uniformed personnel are treated no differently than accepted civilian federal employees who are similarly expected to continue working during a shutdown, but whose pay will be delayed until appropriations are enacted. Well, I know my friend from Indiana feels as I do, and we've got, I don't know, around 50 other people just in a matter of an hour or so that have signed on to this bill that says, and we've just gotten a number, H.R. 1297, and I'll get over right to the meat of this thing. It says, during a funding gap impacting the armed forces, the Secretary of the Treasury shall make available to the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security in the case of the Coast Guard out of any amounts in the general fund of the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, such amounts as the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security in the case of the Coast Guard determines to be necessary to continue to provide pay and allowances without interruption to members of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard, including reserve components thereof, who perform active service during the funding gap. And so we hope that the majority leader in the Senate, Harry Reid, and Senator Schumer and those who have been saying privately that got exposed, like the Bible says, what's done in the dark will be exposed, and it has been. They're out to shut down the government, try to blame the Tea Party, and they have expected that one of the things they'll, I'm sure, be able to do is have the lamestream media that run out and try to do anything they can to support that party go try to find spouses of military in harm's way who are scared to death because now the government has been shut down and there's no check coming in for the next pay period. And this will address that. And we can take our military off the table as pawns and let them be about concentrating on protecting us and saving their own lives. Yield back to my friend.
Let me just, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Louis.
No.
The one thing I think that my colleagues and anybody that's paying attention ought to know is, first of all, I have heard that the Republicans don't have an alternative health care plan. We've had one for 2 years. Yeah. And the media keeps saying we haven't provided an alternative. We do. One that will work and won't cost the taxpayers and the future generations almost everything that they'll ever expect to earn. That's number one. And the other thing that concerns me is that the administration and now their complicit persons in the court and the media are trying to do everything they can to move this country in a direction that nobody has ever anticipated, and that is complete government control over our lives. And I know that you and all of our colleagues on this side of the aisle are very committed to making sure that doesn't happen. And the last thing I'd like to say is we need to cut government spending. You know this. And we're sending legislation over there to try to cut $100 billion or $61 billion out of this year's spending. $61 billion. The projected deficit this year is $1.4 trillion. $61 billion is a drop in the ocean. It's nothing. Right. And yet they don't want to cut anything or any programs. And if we don't cut spending, this country will not only be bankrupt, we'll be giving a legacy to our kids and grandkids that they'll never forgive us for. And so I just hope my colleagues are really aware of that. We don't want to shut the government down. We are committed to cutting spending. They're the ones that want to, when we send a spending cut over there, won't let the bill pass. And we're cutting in a responsible way. So, you know, they're the ones that are causing the problem. We do not want the government shut down. Anyhow, I yield back.
Well, and one of the things that's being said is, but what about the children? I welcome that question, because those of us who are standing so firmly in trying to cut this runaway spending are the ones who are standing for the children and the children's grandchildren, because what has been done, and in truth, we were running some, I remember getting beat up in 05, 06 for $160 billion in deficit spending. It was wrong. We shouldn't have been there. But now for the last 3 years, or 2.5, to be over $1 trillion each year is just reprehensible. It is wrapping such a heavy weight and chains around the necks of the children, some not even born yet, that it is unthinkable that somebody would invoke for the children to keep self-aggrandizing spending going when it's going to come out of the children and their grandchildren's pockets. We've got some that say, it's all going to work out. Don't worry about it. Look, just let the spending go. Don't rock the boat. And I saw this prayer from Peter Marshall back when he was chaplain of the Senate. And just for historical purposes, one of his prayers in the Senate, he said, "Oh, Father, give us the faith to believe that it is possible for us to live victoriously even in the midst of dangerous opportunity that we call crisis. Help us to see that there is something better than patient endurance or keeping a stiff upper lip, and that whistling in the dark is not really bravery." I yield back.
Well, I thank my colleague for coming down to the floor, and Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. For what purposes does the gentleman from Indiana rise?
Mr. Speaker, I move the House to now adjourn.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. According to the House, stands adjourned until noon on Monday. Next, for morning hour debate.
The House today finishing up work on a pair of measures. First, they approved a 4-year extension of certain FAA programs, though the House did defeat an amendment offered by Ohio Republicans